Hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and I'm here with Chantal Donnelly, a physical therapist and author of an incredible book that I am reading and devouring called Settled: How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. And she's also the founder of a wellness company called Body Insight. Thank you, Chantal, so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I've been reading Chantal's book and being part of her book club over the last 4 weeks, and I am learning so much about what it means to self-regulate. And I think it's important for any human being to understand their nervous system, which I never understood to the level of detail that Chantal has helped me know and understand. And so I wanted to have Chantal come on today to talk about this really critical um, understanding of how a parent's nervous system and a baby's nervous system interact and how we can help the parent's nervous system remain calm, centered, and balanced when they're in a sleep coaching mode with their child while they're trying to improve their child's sleep. So we have a lot to discuss today. So thank you, Chantal.
Yeah, super important for the parent to stay as regulated and calm as possible. And before we started recording, you were telling me about how your first 3 sessions of sleep coaching are the most difficult because that's when the baby is really frustrated with all the change that's starting to happen. I'm going to guess that even though the parent isn't conscious of it, their nervous system is also really frustrated. Even though they want their child to go to sleep, the nervous system likes the status quo. It
Mm.
doesn't like change.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So it's going to be the baby who doesn't like change as well as the parent. There's a little bit of that going on, even though you're not aware of it.
hmm Okay. So tell us, so explain the interaction between a parent's nervous system and a baby's nervous system.
So, if you have a premature baby, first of all, their calming nervous system, their parasympathetic nervous system has not completely developed yet. That happens at the very end of the third trimester. So if a baby is premature, they're going to still be in that developmental phase.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's
So that's
number
important.
one.
hmm
Yeah, that is important. Yeah. If you have a child who isn't premature, who was born on schedule, then that child's nervous system is developed, but it's not formed its preferences yet. So it's a newborn nervous system, right? So like
Right.
anything else, it's going to take a little while for the baby to actually understand how to self-regulate. And what happens is children under the age of 9 look to the parent's nervous system to decide if they're going to be in freeze, in fight or flight, or in calm.
hmm
And I mean, think about it. Have you ever seen a child be calmer than the parent?
No.
Doesn't happen. It can't generally.
Right.
They can
Right.
look like they're calmer, but that's usually because they're in freeze. They're
Uh-huh.
in shutdown or they're, completely paralyzed by stress.
hmm
That's when it looks like they're calmer than the parent because the parent might be running around like a chicken with their head cut off in fight or flight, and the kid is just sort of frozen, but really they're in freeze. They are not calmer than the parent. It's
hmm
just almost impossible for that to happen.
Okay. Right. So in other words, it is for us as parents, especially parents of young children up until age 9, it is really important for us to understand where we are standing on the spectrum of self-regulation. And when a parent is doing something really new, like learning how to be a sleep coach to their child, they're coming into this experience sleep deprived.
Mhm.
They're coming into this experience having probably already tried some attempts at sleep coaching and it's failed. So in the back of their mind, there's this big question mark like, how will this time be different? Or a big question mark of maybe my baby's going to be the toughest baby on the planet to learn to sleep, and everyone else has been lucky but me. And then they also know that they're gonna have to go do what they think is this really hard thing, and they're not sure if they really have the stamina to be the sleep coach. So, one of the things that happens when in those first 3 to 4 nights, which are the most important, is, um, I feel like there's 3 stages that a parent might be in where they need to double check their own personal self-regulation. So stage 1 would be they've just come home from work, they're transitioning from work life to family life. Okay, so that might be like, okay, now I'm home, we're doing family dinner, I'm helping, get the babies, bathed and everything. So it's kind of like, okay, how to make that transition. Then the second phase would be, all right, now I'm the sleep coach and I am with this child doing a final feed and reading books before I put them in the crib. Am I regulated even in that what's supposed to be this relaxing, reliable bedtime routine? Am I even showing up regulated in that phase?
Yeah.
And then the third phase would be my child is now in the crib and I'm in active sleep coach mode, meaning I am there to support my child as they learn how to regulate, settle, and soothe themselves. But in those first 3 to 4 nights, the role of the coach is to be the regulator. The child, because of what Chantal just said, that that they have an underdeveloped nervous system and the parent is the one that is the co-regulation. So what Chantel's going to do today is take us through each of those 3 phases and talk about tools and things to consider for yourself so that you're really ready to show up being your best self when you are helping your child learn these new skills.
Yeah, there's definitely different things you can do at the three different stages. First thing I would want to say is coming into this, you want to have as much self-compassion as you possibly can, because being a parent, whether you are trying to get a child to sleep or just trying to parent on any regular day, is very difficult and very stressful. And you shouldn't expect yourself to always be calm through it, all
Right,
of that. Like there are
right,
going to be times that you are going to be stressed as a parent.
right.
100%, right? And not to feel like that is some kind of a failure or a weakness, because it is absolutely not. It's just a normal, natural way that things work. So that's number one. And so when you're coming home from work, or coming to that transition of coming back into family and getting ready, dinner time, bath time, whatever it is, getting ready to go into the sleeping phase, that second phase. Um, the first thing I would say is that if you are rushing
Yeah,
to do that, which we often are and don't have a choice, right? Because our time is limited and we've got to leave work at a certain hour and blah, blah, blah. If you are rushing, your nervous system will think you are under stress.
yep.
So allowing yourself to slow down a little bit,
Mhm,
particularly the closer you get to home, is
mhm,
helpful. And then having a little bit of a transition ritual.
mhm,
And it can be a 30-second ritual. It doesn't have to be a big ordeal, but just 30 seconds where maybe you're still in the car before you get out of the car to go into the house. And it's something that you can do to just let your body know that you are transitioning and that you're going into a more settled state, right? Before you get with the family. And one of those tools, there's many different tools. There can be a breathing tool. There can be something what we call cross-body alternating touch tool.
mhm.
You can use your eyes as a tool. You can use mindfulness as a tool. There's a whole bunch of things. What I find that really works well for transitioning is the alternating touch
Mhm.
tool.
Yeah, can you
So
show us that one?
sure. There's lots of different tools there, but the one that I like to use is I just take my right hand and I place it on the top of my left shoulder. And then I just sweep my arm down towards my fingers. And then I use the other side of the body, left hand to right shoulder, and sweep.
Yeah,
And you can keep your arms on your steering wheel or wherever by your side, depending on where you are, right? And you can just do this a couple of times, 30 seconds. That's it.
right.
That's all you need to do.
And
And that alternating touch has been shown to calm your amygdala Your amygdala is where there's a fear center of your brain, and it has been shown to calm the fear centers of the brain. And so, going into this situation where, oh, I'm going to have to get my child to sleep and I have to do this successfully, there's a little bit of fear there, right?
Mhm.
And so, this is just sort of calming everything down, sending a message from the body up to the brain
Mm.
that you are safe, that everything's okay, and to just sort of settle that nervous system. When you do it, you should feel slowing of your breath, um, perhaps a deepening of your breath.
Mhm.
You're going to feel your heart rate come down, slow down a little bit. Maybe the tension in your shoulders from your workday is going to release a little bit.
Mhm.
Tension in your jaw. Maybe your stomach might feel a little bit looser, not so clenched. You might just feel a little more expansive, maybe a little warmer. Those are the signs that your nervous
And
system.
also sometimes saliva.
Increased salivation is a
Yeah,
sign
that's what
of
happens to me. I take a deep breath and then I can feel an increase of saliva in my mouth, and then I know the tool is working. And what's amazing about these tools is that, like she says, they only take like 15 to 30 seconds. I mean, I've been doing several of these tools frequently, and usually within the first 15 seconds, I can feel my breath getting deeper and more saliva in my mouth, and then I know I'm taking care of myself and I'm calming my nervous system down. It's pretty powerful. Yeah. So I love that idea of not rushing, having a little transition ritual,
Mhm.
and maybe that transition ritual is something as simple as the side arm sweeps
Yeah.
before you come back into the homestead with the family. I love
Yeah.
that.
This is a
Super.
little woo woo, but what I add to my little transition ritual after I do this is just sort of three little sweeps where I'm just sort of like washing the day away, kind of like
Mhm.
blah, right?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
get that day, the work day off of you.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of again, it's just a symbolic ritual of, okay, I'm going from work to home now.
Right. And this is even true if you're, coming out of your home office, right? I mean, let's not be fooled that making the transition from home office back out into family life is not a transition. In fact, it can be almost a bigger transition than doing the car ride. Because at least in the car ride, you're like, have time to think or listen to music or whatever. But sometimes just stepping out, 2 feet into the household can be a big change.
That's a good
Okay, so
point.
now let's
Yeah.
talk about kind of like there you are, you're a parent, you're like, all right, I've made the successful transition. I've helped my baby get ready for bed, and now I'm the sleep coach and I'm in my first, 1 to 4 days of sleep coaching, and I'm nervous, I'm scared, I hope this is going to work. Hopefully I've got Joanna on my team as the sleep coach, but if you don't, because I would be coaching you on all of this to really get you really geared up. But if you're doing this on your own, then you would just be able to say, okay, so now I'm in the room with the baby, and the thing about babies, you guys, whether they are 6 months old or 10 years old, whenever there's a change of pattern, there will be frustration and confusion. And when children are frustrated and confused, they will protest. It is normal human response to change. But when we are parents and we are already sleep deprived and probably a bit frazzled, when we hear our babies protest, we have that visceral response like, okay, I got to go do something, right? And the thing about gentle sleep coaching is there's lots you can do to settle your child, but it matters what state you're in
Mhm.
before you go try to do that loving approach, like picking up or the loving song or the loving pat. So, this is what we're talking about. It's like we're talking about your state in direct relationship with your baby because their nervous system below age 9 is underdeveloped and their nervous system depends on your nervous system. So we're in the room, we're in phase 2 now. We're in the room, baby's in the crib, baby's had the bottle or the bedtime feed. Baby's been read to, baby's in the crib at the right sleep window, so you've done everything right, and baby's frustrated because this is night 2 of coaching and baby still is waiting for mom to show up to breastfeed. and the dad starts freaking out and being like, "Oh my god, what can dad do?"
So if dad hasn't picked the baby up yet, then he can use tools with his hands to self-soothe. Um, so another tool that is the alternating touch tool would be the butterfly hug. So he can, what you do is you take your hands, palms facing you, cross the hands and interlock the thumbs. And then you place your hands on your chest so that your fingers are just under your collarbones. And then you're going to tap
Mhm.
one side of the body and then the other side. So it's alternating touch, right? You can tap fast, you can tap slow, you can tap hard, you can tap light. It's totally up to you, but you just need to do this for about 30 seconds. So this is another alternating touch that's an option for a dad or a mom who's in that situation.
Mhm.
Because as soon as you hear your child cry, particularly if it's a more desperate cry, your nervous system is going to signal danger, right? So you need to tell your body, to tell your brain that there is no danger, right? And so things like butterfly hug. What another thing you can do breathing wise is a long exhalation. We know that when you inhale, your heart rate goes up a little bit. And when you exhale, your heart rate goes down a little bit. So you can use that physiological phenomenon by lengthening the exhale. So you can inhale for 3 counts, for example, and then exhale for 6 counts. That's also going to send a message up to the brain that you were not stressed.
So good. And, um, what's fascinating about this is that no one taught us this, that because of you and your book and your work and being a, resilience toolkit facilitator, which is all about building resilience in the body, is this idea that what's happening in the body is sending messages to the brain. So we think all the messages are coming from the brain, but they're actually coming from the body up to the brain. And so when we're feeling nervous or stressed or something, it's all starting here, but we don't know that. We think it's all happening up here.
Right. Our thoughts can certainly augment it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe all you guys know about this already, but I feel like I've been having kind of an awakening in reading her book and just understanding my mind body connection a little bit more deliberately
Yeah.
and testing these things out. Like as part of her book club, she's got homework for us. I was a little delinquent on my homework, but I'm going to start doing it again. And because I know ultimately it's going to help me, you know, that's
Yeah.
why I wanted Chantal to come today to just help
Yeah.
us all.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
So
where
it,
there you are. We're in phase two. Like you're coaching. You don't have the baby in arms, right? So
right.
you are realizing so you can do more of this,
More of the arm sweeps. Yep.
can do
Butterfly
butterfly.
hug. You can do the long exhalation. Now, if those are not working, another one you can try is doing
Mhm,
a neck massage. It's
mhm,
specifically your sternocleidomastoid muscle, SCM muscle, goes from behind the ear and goes down to your collarbone, right where your collarbone and your throat kind of meet up.
mhm.
So you don't have to worry that you're on the muscle specifically, but just raking from behind the ear down to the collarbone talks to the sternocleidomastoid, and that muscle is innervated by a cranial nerve that's very, very close to your vagus nerve, and your vagus nerve is your calming nervous system. So those two nerves interconnect and can help you to regulate. I think of this muscle as sort of being a portal to the calming nervous system. And so that's something that really works for people is just massaging right behind the ear and going down to the collarbone. Sometimes just staying behind the ear and just massaging back there can be really helpful for people.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
and again, these are just gentle movements. These are not, intense, just you don't have to press hard. I mean, the first time I did butterfly, I was going, like really fast. And she's like, No, 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 no. You can you don't have to do it slow, but you don't need to like,
Don't beat
fly off
yourself
to
up.
the moon, so, like that, right? So there that's okay. All right. So now we're in a situation where you have the baby in arms
Yep.
and the baby's not calming down. And that's probably because you either overstimulated the baby or you're in power struggle with the baby, or it probably means you're still dysregulated.
Yeah, I think if there's a power struggle happening or the baby is feeling overstimulated, you're trying too hard, and you're probably trying too hard because you are stressed. You're in fight flight, right? So you're fighting through this. You're pushing through a little aggressively. And again, this could be very unconscious. You could be doing this and not really knowing that you're pushing too much. But you're just trying so hard, right? And you're a little stressed about it. And so that comes across to a very new nervous system as too much,
Yeah.
right?
I call it flooding. I
Great
try to
word.
explain flooding because parents seem to really resonate like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. When I went to go do that 3rd pickup in a row, me coming at the baby with my arms, with my big nervous system on fire. I'm like literally flooding the baby with all of that energy. And then the baby isn't calm, even when I do the most loving thing, which is to pick them up. They are not down regulating with me. And it's not because you're doing it wrong, but because you guys are, your nervous systems are clashing, right? So let's talk about what you do when you have a baby in arms.
So, of course, you can use breathing techniques because you don't need your hands for that. The other thing I really like to do is we tend to kind of look at the baby in a very sort of narrow, focused, intense kind of way. And that visual mechanism is exactly what happens naturally to your eyes when you're in fight or flight,
Hmm.
right? So if you do the opposite, which would be to open up your gaze and take in a 180-degree view of what's happening in your
Mm,
space in the room, and you don't even have to move your eyeballs like that, Joanna. You can just literally imagine you're taking in a sunset. Like,
mm.
think about softening your
Oh,
eye
yeah, I see.
and
Mhm,
just letting your whole visual perspective open up. I call it
mhm,
panoramic
mhm,
vision,
mhm, mhm,
right? So you're just taking everything in, and just that will kind of trigger your brain to go, oh, we're not in a stress state. It's when we're in that really intense focused state that things can kind of go awry because our brain can get a little confused by the information coming in from our eyes when it's that focused and narrow,
mhm.
our vision. Um, and that's why I wouldn't recommend a parent prior to picking up the baby if they are trying to soothe themselves to look at their phone. Right? Like scrolling on social media is not going to help you downregulate. Not just because of the content on social media, 'cause that's one of the reasons, right? But the other reason is that your eyes are going into focus mode, and we don't want that. We want your eyes to stay soft and opened and to take in a 180-degree view.
Wow. Yeah, so that one's really powerful, right? Because I often say to families, like, don't stare your baby straight in the eyes because they will actually get madder.
Mm,
But it kind of makes sense because if you're dysregulated and you're looking at your baby and they're looking at you, like you guys kind of get locked into that. Whereas if you pick up your baby and you're maybe, taking in kind of the panoramic view and then you're breathing because you're trying to co-regulate, right? So 3 breaths in and then 6 counts out, then you're now co-regulating with your child in arms. And we all know what this looks like, right? So the analogy I always give is, if your child or baby falls on the ground and bumps their head, they're going to be crying. You're absolutely going to be picking them up. And usually when you pick them up, they're still crying in arms. And when they're in your arms, calming down after bumping their head, they are co regulating with you. They are crying in arms is fine. Like, it is a safe place to be to co-regulate, and as they calm, they're still crying, but they're getting, less and less and less until they're at a whimper, and then they recover. That is fine. That's kind of what we're looking at, like, co-regulation, that's what we want to see. We wanna see this coming down,
Yep.
both for the child and for the parent, and then when the child's calm, you can put them back in the crib,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. One
Yeah.
thing you can do is what's called entrainment breathing, which can be kind of fun to play with a child. Entrainment breathing is when if your breathing is calm, but the person you're with, in this case, the baby, is not, you match their staccato, irregular breath for just 2, 3 seconds.
Mhm.
And then you start to slow your breath down.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of helps them. So they're on the same rhythm with you because you've matched the way that they're breathing. And then you start to slow your breathing down to a calmer pace. And then they can kind of follow suit. Um, and that can be really effective in that situation where you're holding your child.
That I can see how that could work really beautifully.
Hmm.
Um, that's a very powerful tool. So, as you can see, everybody, that, there are these 3 zones you're gonna inevitably be in when you're in sleep coaching mode, and each zone is an opportunity for you to regulate yourself, and when you do that, you are literally helping your child's regulation system mature because you're showing them what, like, could I say the word right regulation looks like? What is that?
You're co-regulating with them, so they're able to sort of match your tune, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, you're helping them learn how to regulate by showing them what a regulated nervous system looks like. Calm is contagious, right? So they're going to pick up on that. There's a
Mhm.
little bit of mirroring that happens, so they're learning from what you're doing, but it's also just that they don't know what to do and they're just going to follow suit. They trust you. They're going to follow suit with where you're at. If you feel safe and you show that through a regulated nervous system, then they will feel safe. If you're feeling, oh my gosh, this isn't working, and I want to get to my glass of wine and go to bed myself, and so you start to upregulate a little bit, it's going to be really hard to get your child to downregulate or to soothe, right?
Right,
I wanted
right.
to say too, in that second zone, because we didn't really touch on that, Joanna.
Mhm,
The second zone, when you're reading the book, and right? Am I correct
mhm,
on that's the second zone? It's the
mhm.
reading and the prepping for bed and everything. You might have your mind wander and you're thinking about your to-do list and you're thinking about, is this going to work? Or when do I get my downtime because I'm really tired? Like all of that stuff that really happens naturally as parents. That's when mindfulness can really be helpful during that phase where you can focus on what you're hearing in the room or
Mhm,
the temperature of the room or the light in the room and all those little things that you can focus on to bring you into the present moment
mhm, mhm.
and to keep you grounded that way. Because otherwise, if you're thinking about all that stuff, then you're not going to be settled as you go into the third zone, right?
Right, thank you so much. I realized I skipped a zone, but I'll on that note about, trying to detach yourself from, like, your to-do list. The other thing I often say is, like, don't be thinking about the other caregiver outside the room. So, for example, if dad is a sleep coach and mom's outside the room and you're afraid that you're gonna be judged,
Mm.
or she might be watching you on the monitor, or if she hears a cry, she's gonna think you're doing it wrong. Like, all of that happens right now when I'm working with clients. I, like, really help build a united front so that there's agreements, um, made between partners about how mom is not to interrupt, mom is, not gonna text him because dad really does need to be really emotionally present because he is there to pay exquisite attention to his child. Like, that's really what's happening when you're really doing gentle sleep coaching. The parent is very emotionally present and is paying exquisite attention to their child and being very loving and very attentive. And in order to be that way, they have to be in the moment. And I always say to them, if you find yourself popping out, thinking about that work project, thinking about maybe, someone watching you on the monitor, in that moment you pop out, guarantee that baby's going to start crying more.
Yeah,
And
guarantee your nervous system isn't settled too, right?
yeah, and the parent, dad will say, God, you were so right. I found myself getting a little distracted and was thinking about some work deadline, and that baby that was literally about to fall asleep ramped up and was
Mhm.
all like, ding, and I said, yeah, it's pretty remarkable what happens, which is why, I wanted Chantal to come today to talk to us more about how to stay properly regulated, because ultimately it will make the sleep coaching process go way better. And you will walk away with more tools that you can use outside of your sleep coaching environment. Like I said, I'm in Chantal's book club for Settled, and I'm learning all these tools that I can use throughout my day. What I can do before a meal, what I can do between client calls, all of that to stay really balanced and centered and calm, so that I can be the best coach I can be and also the best human I can be, not to be upregulated all the time. So this has been so valuable, Chantal. Thank you so much. Can you tell everybody more, like how to find your book, how to find you, what other services are you offering these days if people want to learn more about their nervous system?
Sure. I have a company called Body Insight. So if people go to bodyinsight.com, they can find out how to contact me. They can find out about my upcoming workshops there. I am on Instagram and Facebook at Body Insight Inc.
Okay.
And you can get my book Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. That's available pretty much online where books are sold. And what else? Hoping to have some workshops coming up soon. I know I have an in-person one in Pasadena coming up in October.
Okay, good. And she does one-on-one coaching too. So if you want to say, come to Chantal and be like, okay, these are all the things that are going on with me. Give me some customized tools and protocols that will help me. Um, you do one-on-one coaching in that way, which I think is really valuable, because if you want to get right to the heart of things, if you don't have time to read the book or time to do the workshop, but you want direct help, Chantal is available for one-on-one coaching as well. So I will make sure that in the show notes, all of that contact information is available. But I do highly, in fact, can you hold up the book? Do you have the book read? By
Do
mine's upstairs by my bedside. So there we go. That's the book. So I do recommend this. And then, but her Instagram is awesome because she's constantly demonstrating tools on. So if you're more of a visual learner, the Instagram is a great place to go. So thank you so much, Chantal, for helping us today to learn more about our nervous system.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope it helped.
Yes.